Hello, Rowena, how are you?
Good, thank you, Michael.
Well, it's great to meet you. I know we've had a couple of emails back and forth just preparing, getting ready for this debrief, and I appreciate you allowing me to spend the hour with you just to sort of see what we can get out of the report, your report. Just tell us a little bit about where you practice at the moment, just so I got a bit of an understanding about your the way you're being a doctor at the moment.
Okay, so I practice up at Mullaney.
No, it's lovely.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's such a lovely place.
Yeah.
It's a relatively small practice, so there's only about 6 doctors on staff, but it's busy. It's in town, so we're quite a busy, buzzing little practice.
And you're the only female doctor, are you?
No, we are predominantly female,
Oh,
actually.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's lovely. We have just a lovely collegiate atmosphere in the practice, so it's a really rewarding place to work.
Yeah, it sounds like you really love it there.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, fantastic. Ah, great. Well, thanks for sharing that with me. And I'm also keen to, obviously today we've got an hour to look at your multi-source feedback report, which is really about patients commenting on your communication skills or your interpersonal competencies, and also your peers, your colleagues commenting on your professionalism. So the report sort of captures both of those, which is great. So when you received the report and it came through via email and you opened it up, what was your first reactions?
I guess at first I was a little trepidatious, the report's arrived, what's it going to say? But then I was struck by just how comprehensive the report is. There's just so much in there that to work through, and so much good data. So that was really great.
Yeah, there is a lot in there, isn't there?
I think in terms of the feedback, I'm not sure if I can say it or not.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I was just so pleased at the actual feedback coming from patients and colleagues. It felt so positive, and
It's very positive. Yeah.
Yeah, I just found that so rewarding to read.
Yeah. There's a lot. It's a very good report. Lots of positives. You don't see too many reports like this.
Oh wow! Okay.
So, well done, you.
Thank you.
In terms of the learning, what have you learned from the report?
Well, I'm not sure actually. I'm not sure that there's a great deal of learning to be taken from it. I mean, when you hear feedback from colleagues and patients, that's always a learning opportunity, but I'm not sure that, I think because it's quite positive, I'm not sure what the learning in here is for future practice or improvement, things like that.
Okay, so it sort of confirmed what you felt already about how you were performing in your practice, both on patient feedback and what colleagues thought of you in terms of your professionalism. But in terms of going forward, I'm hearing you saying, because it's so positive, there's not a great deal there for you to sort of learn.
Yeah,
Okay.
potentially, yeah.
Okay, well, no, that's fine. Would you mind if we now just sort of go through the report together and see what, let's see if there are things there that might be worth noting.
Yeah, great.
Okay. So if you go to that page with the called the summary page, just a few pages in, with the 2 tables there, you can see your scores are in the 90s for patient feedback, and also quite high for colleague feedback. So a lot of dark blues there, which means your score falls in the highest 25% of all scores in the benchmark data set. So you're right up there, which is fantastic. So there is, as you say, it is an exemplary report. There's a lot of good stuff here, so well done. And if you turn over the page, you'll come to the graphical overview results. And those vertical blue lines, both for patient feedback and colleague feedback, are the median scores. And you can see the black crosses, which are your scores, are well to the right of those medians, well above. And you would have picked that up as well. I notice you'll see in that colleague feedback, there's the white crosses. And a lot of your white crosses are well below your score. It's almost like you rated yourself a lot lower than what you're...
I noticed that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any thoughts about that at this stage?
Some of my experience with other doctors, particularly through my training, was not necessarily very positive in terms of their attitude about themselves.
Right.
So I guess I never want to be like that. I never want to think as a doctor that I'm some kind of god who has all the answers. I always want to be thinking I can be doing better. I can be improving. I can be doing more for my patients, that sort of thing. So I think maybe it's kind of reflecting that.
Yes, okay.
Sort of thing.
So very modest sort of rating, but you've done much better than how you've self-rated yourself. So
Yes.
that's not too uncommon, we see. Sometimes we see the opposite, rarely, but that's a bit worrying when that happens, when someone rates themselves, I think as you just mentioned, very positively, but there are some issues. And in this case, it's the opposite for you. So that was just interesting when I saw the report. So, and if we go to the patient feedback component, so table 1.1, you'll notice there's no poor or fair ratings, so that's really positive, particularly with patient feedback. In the next table, 1.2, you'll see that all your scores are 90% and above, so yeah, very positive. And over the page, you'll see a breakdown of scores compared to some demographics such as age and gender. And even if they've seen you for the first time or not, and nearly all of your scores for age categories and gender are well above the average. So, and you saw a mix too, I noticed there, 25 females, 14, even though you had some male patients, you're a female doctor in a largely female practice, but the majority of your patients were female.
Yep.
I noticed there too, like you had 12 patients who'd seen you for the first time.
Yes.
And your score was 89%, compared to those who'd seen you more than once, it was 97%. So quite a gap there.
Yes, I noted that.
Yeah, that's quite typical. Because the interpersonal competencies for people that see for the first time is quite challenging. I don't know if you know, but people make about 10 impressions of you in the first 20 seconds of meeting you. So those first impressions are quite challenging, and we notice right across the spectrum that the scores for first visit patients are lower. So that's not untypical, that one.
That's good to know.
So well done. And then the comments from patients. Wow, you had 39 patients rate you. Fantastic. And lots of comments there. So what did you make of those comments when you read through them?
It was so lovely to hear from patients. And I think the main thing that I was getting from this set of feedback was, what seemed to keep coming up was caring, that they seem to feel that I'm a caring doctor, which I just loved reading that so much.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love reading it too. And caring came up, I don't know if you counted them, I did. It comes up 9 times across those comments, as does behaviours such as, and what was quite impressive about the feedback from the patients in making these comments is many of them made a comment on a behaviour, like kind, compassionate. listens, easy to talk to. It's lovely hearing these things, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
Goes the extra mile, helps patients feel heard. So these are wonderful. But what I would like you to think about is when I hear caring, and came up 9 times as I mentioned, what does Rowena do that elicits the feedback of caring? How does Rowena demonstrate caring in her unique way? I mean, Michael can do it in his way, but how does Rowena demonstrate caring?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's obviously something you do because people are writing about it, so you do naturally. But have you ever thought about what is it that patients actually take the time to write caring? What do you think they're writing about? What behaviours are you doing that elicits that comment?
I mean, I think I'm fairly warm as a person.
Yeah.
So I guess that's part of it.
Yeah.
I guess I try to, as much as possible, be with the patient. So really listen.
So is your seating set up
Side by side.
side by side?
Yeah. And I invite them to call me Rowena. And if they're comfortable doing that, and I ask them what they would like to be,
Cool,
how they would like me to refer to them.
Yeah.
And just trying not to interrupt, I think, is a big one. Just trying to really get to know them and let them tell me why they're here and what their experience is with whatever, the medical condition that they're seeing me for.
And not interrupting is a big thing. The evidence says that generally doctors tend to interrupt after about 20 seconds when a person's talking. And patients do comment on that. So well done you for realising that's probably eliciting the caring as well. And when you say warm, I make patients feel warm, I think that introducing yourself and asking them how they want to be introduced helps a lot. In terms of bringing them from the reception, I suppose you go out and greet them, do you?
I do,
Yeah.
yes.
And call them in. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, so keep doing that
I will.
because that's part of the report. Even though it's a great report that you said, I'm not sure what learning there is to be had. I think when you do so well, it's important to know what you do well and to keep doing it.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Because that in itself is an improvement, is doing more of the good things that you do and knowing what you do. So it's just identifying the behaviours that elicit such a good report.
Right,
I mean, we can sit in the glow of this report, and I wish I hadn't, it's a lovely report. So if I were to ask you, Rowena, how might you continue to improve your relationships with patients? I mean, I mentioned keep doing what you're doing, which is obviously working for you. Have you had any thoughts about what else you might do to continue to improve those relationships?
So I was wondering about patient activation workshops.
All right. Well, tell me about that.
Well, I know that I think the local health district might be running some of those workshops, and that really appealed to me, that whole idea of patient activation and the sort of the instinct and capacity for self-care in the patient, and how to activate that and kind of engage the patient on the healing journey with the doctor, and that all of that is really interesting to me, and I wondered if that might be something that would help me go further in my relationship with my patients.
I'd encourage you to definitely look into that area. I know from my own experience, patient activation is a science now that's becoming well recognised because it's really about that co-creation with the patient around their journey of self-care usually with their chronic conditions. So if that local health district's running a course on patient activation, that might be well worth attending.
Okay,
So
great.
I think that might be the next step maybe for you and your journey with patients and improving those relationships. Well, that's excellent. So is it okay if we move on now to the colleague component? Was there anything else you wanted to say about the patient reports?
No.
Feedback from those 39 patients? No?
No.
Okay,
I think
it's
so.
all very good. And it sounds like you've got some thoughts about what else to do. If we move on to the colleague component of the report, you'll see there in table 2.1, again, no poor comments, no fair comments. I noticed, if it's okay, the excellent column, you'll see the lowest excellent ratings. That's a bit harsh, isn't it, to talk about the lowest excellent ratings? But you've done really well in the others. But what were your lowest? It was question 9, ability to say no, and awareness of your own limitations. I see you smiling. What were your thoughts about that?
I find it really hard to say no. If there's an opportunity to help, I want to get in and do it. I guess it's partly just like there's sort of a can do, like, yeah, absolutely, I can do that. I can do that other thing as well. Yeah. So there's that, but I think I just also never want to say no to anyone who's maybe asking for help or looks like they might be struggling with something or, yeah.
So there's a difficulty there in saying no.
Yeah.
And I notice there's a comment or two that come up about that later in the report. We might address that there if that's okay.
Yep.
Yeah, but I just thought I'd highlight that. And obviously you've seen it as well.
Yeah. Fantastic.
So if you move over to table 2.2, you'll notice there, even your score on ability to say no, it's actually above the median, just above the median. So, but it's something that obviously resonated with you when you saw that. Okay. And we come to the comments now. Again, the colleague feedback was very positive, the scores, as you can see. And the comments are very positive as well. You've had 15 colleagues. Can I just ask you, what was the mix of colleagues that you chose to comment on your professionalism?
So I had about 5 doctors.
Okay, so a mix of doctors.
And then other clinicians. So there was pharmacist, physio, nurses.
Okay.
And then for the more managerial side of things, I had our practice manager, our receptionist, one of our receptionists, and then the PNH.
Oh, right. So someone from the local health district.
Yes.
Right. Okay, well, you must do a bit of work with someone, and that's how you knew about the patient activation course as well.
That's right.
Okay. Yes. And most, it looks like all of them have written a comment about you. I'm always impressed by the time taken by, your colleagues, our colleagues, to comment and not just write great doctor, but write the behaviours that make you a great doctor.
Yeah.
And to spend the time doing that. There are some wonderful comments here, and I know you've read through these.
There's a lot of generosity here. I think it's really,
Yes, absolutely.
thorough.
It is very thorough and it is very positive. Was there anything that stuck out for you in these comments?
I think the things that one comment in particular that really jumped out.
Yeah, go on. Which one's that?
It's over the page, and it's about a failure to understand local resourcing and policies, and that just
I can see that comment here. It says does not always realistically allow high level care that larger hospitals are overprovided when patients require more complex image due to limitation of resourcing and policy. Oh, so they're sort of suggesting that you don't understand the real context.
Yes.
Right. What did you make of that?
Oh, I just feel awful about it. is what it really. I'm worried for my patients that I might be getting things wrong for them, but because I just think. I thought that I was taking those limitations into account.
Right.
But maybe I'm not. Yeah.
I can see you're concerned by it.
I am.
I just want to put it in context, if that's okay. It's one comment out of 15. So there's a lot of other comments that don't mention this. So, but I can see you're concerned, and maybe that might be something, you want to have a look at. But in the context of this, there's a lot more positives in here. And I'd like just to have a look at those as well, if that's okay.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure, yep.
All right. So if we look at that first comment, fantastic ability to manage interpersonal conflict. That's impressive. Did that resonate with you?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Not 100%?
not 100%.
Right.
I just wonder if part of that is the fact that I tend to just give in a little bit.
Oh, what you said before about
Potentially.
not being able to say no, that you
Yeah.
referred to before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe that's something that's at play there as well, that with interpersonal conflict, I'm more likely to just bow out.
Right. Well, this person sort of is managing interpersonal conflict, but
True,
yeah, but
true.
it's what resonates for you. So what might you do in that situation? I can hear you saying there's a hesitancy around that. Is that a possible learning point for you, do you think?
Yeah, I think it could be. I think it could be.
In what way? What are you thinking there? Would you mind if I suggest something? Is that okay? It might be helpful. I hope it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually around the interpersonal conflict, we often talk about people being passive at one end, not being able to say no, those sorts of things.
Yes.
And at the other end's aggressive.
Yes.
And I think you touched on that a little bit maybe before, where doctors thought they were God or something, and you may have been bullied in the past. I don't know, but that aggressive behaviour is not. But in the middle of those two, between a passive and aggressive, is assertive.
Yes.
So I see you nodding there. Is that something you're familiar with, assertiveness?
Yes. Yes, definitely. That the idea of that is the middle ground between passive and aggressive. And I think, yes, I think you're right. I think you've touched on something that I could potentially learn to do better. I think assertiveness is, particularly, I have to be honest, particularly as a woman,
Yes.
assertiveness can be a tricky one to really get hold of.
Yeah. Might be perceived differently by different people.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think potentially what you're touching on as well relates to both of those things, to the interpersonal conflict, to the saying no as well, because I think my understanding of assertiveness too is that it is around knowing what your limits are, having boundaries, and then being able to communicate those.
Yes.
And I think potentially that's something I'm not good at. So that could be really useful. Yeah.
I think many of us struggle with that as well. So don't feel alone in that sort of in those challenges. But it's good that you're identifying that. That's great. This report sort of highlighted some of that for you.
Yeah.
Which is great. So assertiveness is something that we might be sort of worthwhile looking at as we move forward. But what else out of all these comments in there? I hope you read them and bold them and underscore them and put them up on the wall. What else struck you as you read these comments? Any particular words? Or?
Yeah, so I approachable was
Yes.
one of the things that I really love to read.
Yeah, that's lovely.
There are a few times people were mentioning sort of a educator, or like willing to take a little bit of time to skill someone up or
Yes.
educate. And then I think the main thing for me was leadership sort of jumped out a bit.
There's quite a bit there on leadership, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that surprising for you?
It was a bit. Yes, I guess I'd never really thought in those terms
Right.
about myself necessarily, but it's something that I'm really now interested in. Like, having read this,
Yeah.
I feel kind of like, maybe that is something that I should think more about.
Maybe it is. Yeah, there's a lot of comments around the leadership aspect. So that might be something you want to pursue a bit more as well. And I know you'll know opportunities around leadership, I know within your practice, but also within the broader medical spheres as well. So, okay, so that's good. So lots of good comments there. Fantastic. And then we talked about how you become more effective. I know you're focused on the resourcing, so that's something you just might want to have a think about. Any thoughts on that at all?
Maybe I can have some conversations with people, just to dig into that a little bit more and see, is it potentially the way I'm communicating the decisions that I'm making, or
It may be.
is it a blind spot?
Yeah.
Just a lack of information or understanding. So
It may well be just the way you communicate it. And just keep it in context. It was one comment, and there's a few comments there around self-care, which might come to that assertiveness bit that we talked about earlier, and ability to say no.
Yeah.
And then finally, just in terms of the report, so that's anything else on the colleague report?
No, I don't
Okay,
think so.
so you covered the patient report, the colleague report. As I said, with the self-assessment, you didn't rate yourself excellent anywhere, but that was because of your experience of people who tend to high note themselves, I think you said before.
Yes.
And that's something you're very conscious of not doing.
Yeah.
But just to be aware that all the scores were well above how you rated yourself. So you're being a bit modest there, I felt, but that's okay. I can see where that's coming from now. So one of the things we like to do at the end of the discussion before we leave is look at what might you do differently going forward, part of your professional development. So I think you named a couple of things as we went through this discussion. Can you recall what they were?
Yes. So we talked about the patient activation workshops.
Yeah, the local health district or the primary health network. That that you know someone there and they've been running some courses. That's great. So that might help you improve even go the next step with your relationships with patients. Yeah.
Yes.
Number one.
So I'm keen on that one.
And you'll follow up with them, will you?
I will. Yes. Yeah.
Great.
And then the other thing we talked about was the potential leadership aspect. And I think, I'm not 100% sure, I'll have to check this, but I think AMA that have some courses around that.
I'm sure they do. I'm fairly certain the AMA would be running courses around leadership. And maybe a local PHN or health district may be running them as well.
Okay, I can check that.
Yeah, no, that's there was one other thing you mentioned as well, and that was the assertiveness training. Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't remember that one.
No. It was a bit about how to say no, really, and look at that. So how might you explore that opportunity?
I'm not too sure. I might.
I mean, there's lots of books on it, but
Well, that's right. Yeah, I was just thinking just some general research. I don't know, maybe there's courses. I don't know. Maybe there's something happening locally. But I mean, if not, then yeah, like you said, there's actually quite a number of books, both from a sort of a self-help aspect, but also from a more of a corporate or professional kind of aspect as well. So I guess I can do some personal research around that and see what the strategies and techniques are there.
sounds like a plan, Rowena. You've got a few things there. And I know, you said I'm not quite sure what to get from the report.
Yes, I've gotten a lot, actually. That's to sort of have 3 areas now that I can investigate is a bit of a surprise, actually. That's great. I that's really terrific. That feels really positive for me.
Great.
So.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed it. I hope it's been helpful in understanding how you're tracking in terms of your interpersonal competencies and your professionalism as perceived by colleagues and peers. As I said, I think it's a fantastic report, and it's wonderful that you've got some actions or steps to go forward with now, having delved more into the report. So thanks again, Rowena. All the best in your professional development.
Thank you so much, Michael. This has just been really excellent, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.